What's up, y'all? Got a whole bunch of topics to discuss with y'all today. Thank you for joining me when you could be anywhere else. We will the first thing we'll be talking about today is this whole part of this whole aspect of the Joe Kent and this recent interview he did with a well respected journalist, Michael Schellenberger, where he kind of goes into a little bit of detail. I'll show you a short clip and I'll share my thoughts on it after I share a few clips. We'll also discuss the fact that there's more blood on the hands of the Biden administration as another illegal alien kills an innocent woman. Hold on, I'm getting some feedback, y'all. Hold on one second. I don't know why that's always happening. Forgive me for that. But yeah, we'll discuss some of Joe's take. Hold on one second. We will what was that? We were discussing the blood that's on the hands of Joe Biden as another illegal immigrant sadly kills a innocent woman in Chicago. That's the allegation. And the response from the left is disgusting as usual. We'll talk a little bit about Nick Shirley. Some of the more evidence, this young man, this young journalist, independent journalist who's uncovered a ton of fraud, in particularly in Minnesota. Now he's set his sights on California, and the healthcare fraud is sickening. And we'll also jump into a bit of Gavin Newsom's unsurprising but childish and stupid response. We'll talk about Jasmine Crockett, her security. I've been wanting to talk about this issue for a while, but I hadn't hit on it. But we'll talk about the wild situation with her security, who was ended up being an ex-felon and who ended up having a deadly encounter with Texas law enforcement. Wild stuff. And and we'll wrap it up with something a little bit more on the lighthearted side. Jillian Michaels, from formerly of The Biggest Loser fitness fame, now she does a lot of political commentary. She went on a debate show where she discussed the how bad it is to be obese. And of course, you had some radicals on the other side telling her that obesity is totally fine. Can't make this stuff up, y'all. But let's jump into the very first topic today. Again, I appreciate y'all joining me as we get into, and this is a very complicated situation going on with Joe Kent. And I don't have all the details to really give you a full orbed opinion right now of what, because I think there are a lot of questions. There's the reality that we don't know. There seemed to be some level of inconsistency with some of the things that he said a few years ago, even a year ago, and what he's saying now, or what he said in his letter as he decided to leave the Trump administration. And if he felt uncomfortable or didn't like what was going on, he's more than able to do that. That's his prerogative. The issue I may have, if it's found out to be the case, is did he release any classified information? Because I'm hearing a ton of back and forth and a lot of vague commentary, not necessarily from him. I mean, I'm having there's some questions I may have, but when it comes to Candace, some of the words that she said he Joe Kent never gave me any information for the purposes of destroying Erica Kirk. There's a reason she's defined it the way she did. And those are my main issues. But again, these are all things that need to be hashed out. I don't know, so I'm not going to criticize the guy one way or another, not until we know more on that front. But when it comes down to his stance, or just some of the things that were said, again, that I spoke about as being contradictory, let me just play this. Start off with this clip from the interview. This is only 5 minutes. I may or may not play the entire thing. You can find it on X. Again, the reporter's name is Michael Schellenberger. But let's jump into the first video.
Record, then you can go off the record. Okay, amazing. And all right.
Hopefully, y'all can hear that well.
So, I mean, the first is just: do you think that the FBI's leak investigation into you was weaponized to silence your, what you were saying, or was it retaliation? Or was it before you wrote your note and left?
It wasn't before I wrote my note and left. Up until the time I told the vice president and the president that I was done. I had full access. I was fully the director. The procedure when you're under investigation is they at least suspend your clearance. And so none of that happened. No one had talked to me. So I view this as not necessarily even retaliation yet. I view it as a media counter narrative. I don't take it very credible, because if the FBI was really going to come after me, they wouldn't leak it to a bunch of media outlets. But they leaked it at a time. I don't even think the FBI leaked it. I think like the White House comm shop.
So what he's saying so far is that he had full access to everything that he had from his intel position. I don't know the exact title, but that's what he's claiming, which pushes against the narrative that we're hearing now, that he was very limited in his resources because people had already questioned whether he was leaking or not. Who knows what to believe when things like that are going on? A lot of propaganda being released in politics. We know that to be the case. So who to trust right now? I have no idea.
Leaked it to come out at the same time my Tucker interview was coming out. It just seems to me like more of a media counter narrative than anything else.
Yeah, makes sense. And are you asking do you want a Office of Inspector General investigation or a congressional investigation? What are your asks?
I don't know if I really have any specific asks. I just want the murder of Charlie Kirk, in terms of Charlie Kirk. I just want the murder of Charlie Kirk to be fully investigated. And as I said, previously, like on Tucker and other programs, I know for a fact that at least the foreign ties portion that NCTC was responsible for, that was not thoroughly investigated. So.
Now he's saying he knows for a fact that there must have been some allegation that there were some foreign ties related to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Now I think I've heard different coming from different sources, and how privy would he be to that information? What I heard initially, and let me know what y'all have heard, if you heard anything about this, which you may have heard. But I heard that he believed that there might have been some link somewhere to the assassination of Charlie Kirk to some foreign governments or entities, and he doesn't specify any group whatsoever. And the report that came out was that he had overstepped his bounds, and that Kash Patel had taken offense to that. That, like, dude, this isn't even your job, and you're just trying to do too much. And who knows? Could this be sour grapes? Time will only tell. But I don't think any reasonable person would push back against the idea that there could be some truth to the idea that there might have been a bigger scheme or bigger plot behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I think every one of us, or most of us, or many of us, I'll say many of us, had concerns, were worried about this. It seemed like it could have been bigger than what it was. There seemed to be we weren't getting the full scoop. At the same time, being a former cop, I know that when you're building a case, cops don't put all their information out there to the public. So a lot of times you just have to deal with what we're being told at the moment. And I think that's one thing that people just don't understand right now. Too many people think that that the FBI, the police should put all the information out there. And that's just silly. That's just silly. What they're trying to do, they have to intentionally at times keep the information on the DL, on the down low, because you may be doing an investigation and you want to know who knows what. There's so many aspects, so many nuance. There's so much nuance behind a proper police investigation. And one thing that is a low priority is telling the public everything that they know. That it just, when you're trying to build a case, when you're trying to convict someone of a crime.
Yeah, I would like that investigation to continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing. So, I mean, do you feel like can you just say, was it just sort of a kind of pattern analysis and speculation, or were you actually seeing like signals intelligence, financial records, travel data, intercepts, something that was more concrete that when you refer to those leads, I think you said the decent amount of leads that came up?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say almost all of the above, because I don't think we really even got very far. And so I can't say that like, hey, there's this one thing that I think is hotter of a lead than another lead. We had a decent amount of leads because there was a big crowd there that day. Charlie had an international following, right? So we were just at the very beginning of doing basic investigatory work on foreign leads. So I can't even tell you on or off the record, like, hey, this one thing. There's a couple specific things that I would, if I were put back on the case, I would start looking at immediately because I think they require attention that I can't get into. But just doing the basic, I would say, curious investigator work 101.
One thing that he mentioned, and I'm not sure if he'll say it here, but he said on the Tucker Carlson interview, I think it was Tucker Carlson, he said that just a few days prior, or just shortly, not long before, Charlie Kirk had came out and said that he had concerns about issues with Israel. And I think it had to do with backers and just some of the things that they may have said. And he may have been looking at Israel in a little bit of a different light. And then he says, a few months or weeks, days, whatever it was, I'm not sure what the time frame was. He said shortly thereafter, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, and he says he said that wasn't a smoking gun per se, but it's like it's data, so you should investigate that. Yes, but the reality is that necessarily a thing that could just be a coincidence? Is that something you need to put all your resources in? That alone. And again, he was in intel. He knows far more than I do. But just from a basic investigatory perspective, that may not be something to look into. Because I find it odd personally that I hope I said Israel. I hope I didn't say Iran earlier. But I find it odd that Israel would have one of their main United States allies, Charlie Kirk, assassinated. And one of Donald Trump's advisors. It just doesn't make sense to me. Despite what we may hear from Candace Owens and Tucker and all these other people, especially Candace, Charlie Kirk, he may have had issue with donors and certain tactics from Israel. He called into question, but it doesn't seem like he lost his support for them overall. And he agreed with a lot of what they did in defending themselves as a nation. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, just logically speaking. As opposed to, on the other hand, on the other side, when Charlie Kirk spoke a lot about the people he thought were coming after him, who had made death threats against him on a routine basis, he primarily spoke about the political left. Numerous podcasts over the years where he spoke about the left and their violent ties. And that is a well-known talking point in the conservative circles, in the conservative political space. We talk about these things all the time because it's real. The mainstream media wants to reject it and deny it, but we talk about these things all the time. There's a clip. If you go out and do a quick search, you'll see Charlie talking about, he was on the Bill Maher show and he's speaking about the need for security. And he pinpoints the left. So the idea that there was some trans-loving gay dude who had a furry boyfriend who became increasingly more political over time, decided he wanted to go out and make a statement against all what he deemed to be Charlie's hate speech, it's not irrational. Just look at the left violence that's taken place, especially, and he wasn't trans per se, but he advocated clearly for that. Just look at the violence in that community alone, and all the Marxists and socialists and all the violence that's taken place over the last year or so with Trump back in office and before then, coming from the political left. So the idea that this guy went out there motivated on his own isn't impossible. I know a lot of folks don't want to believe that, but that's very reasonable.
We didn't get started on that. Or we had just gotten started and we kind of got waved off.
Okay. And had you seen anything on any specific foreign country?
Not foreign country specifically. Our goal was, our purview was foreign, period. So that could be foreign countries, foreign businesses, that could be foreign individuals. I didn't have any, like, this one country was heavily implicated, et cetera. There's some that have already been in the news that I don't want to point to give them more or less credibility. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there were still more foreign links, I think is the best way to put it.
And then, so nothing, just to address the speculation, nothing specifically on Israel.
No, nothing specific on, like, the state of Israel. No.
And nothing specific on, like, Israel cutouts or.
It'd be speculating for me to say yes. So no, nothing specific on that. Again, like there was foreign leads that we needed to run down still that has to be looked into.
Okay. I mean, I was just trying to figure out if it was just like, in other words, it sounded like from the interview that it was just kind of like, you know, Charlie had warned against the war. He had complained, certainly, it looks like in those messages that Candace Owens produced, complained of his Jewish donors. But like nothing beyond that, suggesting like nobody like tied to Tyler. I mean, I guess the question was like, really, is there anything showing Tyler Robinson having relationships outside of himself? Because I think the whole idea appears to be, or he's being prosecuted as just a lone shooter.
I personally have always found the lone shooter narrative to be challenging, but that's just my opinion. Again, my focus wasn't, because Tyler Robinson is an American. Tyler was never exactly where we were looking. We were looking for links. And again, I fully investigating him for foreign links, I don't think that due diligence was done. Him and his associates is what I would say. I don't think that due diligence was done.
And at the same time, considering how Trump has shaken up the entire world with his politics, look what's going on look what he did in Venezuela. Look what he did across the world when it comes to the tariffs, giving people incentives to come back to the United States to build their businesses, especially car dealers. When you look at what's going on in Iran right now, it's very plausible that someone out there, some other country, some other political entity could have been motivated to say, hey, let's see if we can shake things up and take out one of Trump's main guys. That's not beyond the realm of possibility, in spite of what I'm saying, in spite of me believing that the simplest conclusion could have been that Tyler Robinson acted alone. The easiest one is that, But a next step over or down, whichever direction you want to go, could be that he was motivated by some outside entity. And that may not be another country. It could also be some movement within the United States, some of these radical Antifa movements or radical leftist organizations, or a group of people. There's so many different reasons, and I think it's a good idea that he wanted to go down that path. I'm curious as to why it wasn't pursued, if it's true that it wasn't pursued. All right, I think that's it on that one. So the next video related to that I want to share with y'all is a follow-up interview that Michael Schellenberger, the one who interviewed Joe Kent, had on the Charlie Kirk show hosted by Andrew Colvett, and I forget the other guy's name. But he had a follow-up interview. Let me make my head a little bigger. And they talk about some of these issues. This is a longer video, so I'm not going to show the whole thing. But there are a few key points here that I really want to talk about. So let's just jump right in.
Me on. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty big news. Joe Kent, of course, the former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, has been saying for the last week that he thinks that that he doesn't buy the lone shooter theory of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He
we just heard
suspects there's a foreign nexus, was the words he used, involved in that assassination. He said that.
Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts when it comes to the Charlie Kirk assassination? Do you think it was a lone gunman, a local entity, maybe an Antifa group, or do you think it might have had a bigger tie, like an international tie? I wouldn't even go so far as it might have been some local, as far as national political motives behind it. But that is pure speculation. Obviously, I have no intel on that. But just knowing how I think certain people on the left will do anything to stop Trump and stop people on the right.
The FBI prevented him from investigating it, and that he viewed that as suspicious. And if there was nothing there, he told me, then why did they prevent him from investigating it? I asked him if he was aware before he went public last week that Tyler Robinson, the suspected assassin of Charlie Kirk, that his defense attorneys might actually call Kent to the witness stand to argue that that Robinson could not be convicted because the prosecutors had not given them all the information they had available to them. That's something known as the Brady Rule, named after a Supreme Court decision, I believe in the 1960s. But nonetheless, most people are familiar with it from television, which is that the prosecutors can't deny, federal government can't deny, the government can't deny the defense any information. And Kent is saying that there is information, and that the investigation itself was inadequate. And that, I spoke to a constitutional law legal scholar yesterday who said, it would be a no-brainer for the defense attorneys now for Robinson to use Kent's statements as a way to, gain an advantage or potentially a hung jury or a mistrial or something of that nature.
Yeah, that would be obvious if it was me and I was the defense attorneys, the defense team. I would take, I don't know what their plan is. They may have formulated a plot in an attempt to defend Tyler, but I would definitely use the idea, use what Joe Kent is claiming, that there might be some foreign asset out there or something trying to influence Tyler, or that there's information out there that we're not, the defense wasn't privy to, that could throw a monkey wrench in the prosecution's whole case. So if it's true what Joe Kent is saying, I hope for his sake it is, because if not, this could potentially allow a criminal to go free. It's dangerous steps he's taking.
So it's pretty serious for people that are interested in seeing justice served with the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Well, listen, Michael, I know that you have to be sort of dispassionate. You're a reporter. But to me, this feels like a giant red line. This feels like galaxy brain run amok. Did you get a chance to ask him just straight up, just because he didn't get let into the investigation doesn't mean it wasn't investigated?
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I appreciate the point. I mean, I'm trying to, I mean, the truth is, I actually like kind of everybody involved in this. I've actually admired Kent and the things he said in the past. I also care a lot about the transgender issue. We reported it exclusively on leaked
You've
files.
You've been amazing on this issue, Michael. Just to underscore your point, you have been one of the lead voices exposing some of the craziness and the zaniness behind the transgender radical trans ideologies.
And just another shout out, if you're not familiar with Michael Schellenberger, he's pretty solid in his reporting. In a day and age where there's a lot of propaganda being pushed, I think he's one of your safer bets. Those are my thoughts.
So I just wanted to give you some bona fides there.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously it's a big issue, and I think many Americans felt that they didn't need to pay attention to the issue at all. But now we've seen trans-identified people engaged in shootings, obviously, or maybe not obviously, probably obviously to your audience. It was the assassination is pretty overwhelming, and to be fair to Joe Kent, he didn't it was the last thing that Charlie Kirk was talking about before he was assassinated. It appears as though the evidence that Tyler Robinson committed that assassination is pretty overwhelming, and to be fair to Joe Kent, he didn't dispute that. What he's raising here is that there may be some broader conspiracy, and there's not a lot of evidence for that. And but nonetheless, because Kent is such an important voice, he could easily be used by the defense.
And from what Michael said, the interview lasted closer to 30 minutes. And I'm not sure how much. It might be behind a paywall. Like if you follow him on Substack, you might be able to get access to more. The interview portion that I showed earlier was on his Instagram page or his X page. But he's going to say something coming up here real shortly that I want y'all to key into.
Attorneys. I did directly ask him repeatedly that, given that his agency is an intelligence gathering, or really an intelligence synthesizing and coordinating agency as part of the broader coordinating intelligence mission of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, he didn't have the authorities to do a law enforcement investigation. It was FBI investigation. And, didn't he sort of need to trust that his colleagues at the FBI and elsewhere, and also with the Utah police, law enforcement, at some point, you can pass along a tip or an idea, but don't you at some point have to sort of trust, unless you have other evidence? And I asked him if he had other evidence, of some sort of corruption or conspiracy, and he said he didn't.
That's big, y'all. He asked him if he had any evidence of some sort of a conspiracy or corruption, and he said he didn't. That's a big deal. Now, does that mean that there wasn't a full investigation was or wasn't done? Now, that's a different conversation. But as far as like any intentional idea to hide information or something like that, he wasn't able to point out any, according to Michael.
So it kind of raises the question of, what is this sort of based on? Because I think it's worth pointing out to people that the restrictions on Kent's authority to investigate the Kirk murder are not arbitrary. It's not something that Director Kash Patel, whatever you think of him, sort of invented as a way to stymie a proper investigation. Those restrictions on investigative power are what protect us as citizens. It's written into our Constitution. It's part of our Lockean system of government. And I think we saw the intelligence community abuse those powers to create the Russiagate hoax, the Russiagate conspiracy hoax. So, and it's not just that. I mean, we can go through, that wasn't the first time the intelligence community had abused its powers. But when you go through, so the restrictions on Kent that I think for people that maybe haven't thought about it a lot or haven't, that aren't familiar with the intricacies of why these laws exist, I think it's important context. Like, these laws are not there to prevent a thorough investigation or to cover up things, and it certainly wasn't a subjective determination by the FBI director. It's written into laws, and those laws are there, first and foremost to protect us, obviously, but obviously part of the process of protecting innocent civilians is also to make sure that you get the guilty party and you don't go off and engage in activities that would potentially entrap innocent people.
Good point. There's a lot more that I wanted to share there, but I see I've been going a little long on this topic, this video here. But I highly recommend that you go to Rumble, because I don't think the Charlie Kirk show is on YouTube. I don't think they're available there at all. Or maybe they are, but you only get clips. I don't know. But look for it on X, look for it on Rumble, see if it's on YouTube or not. But in a couple of minutes or moments, they discuss a section here that I thought was very interesting. And Michael's response made you raise a few eyebrows. He talks about things that he couldn't talk about because they were said off the record. And it just made you kind of wonder what he was talking about. But some really good stuff there. All right, y'all, let's move on to the next topic. I want to share with y'all. Let me see here. I want to share. Let's move on to what's going on with Miss Jasmine Crockett, everyone's favorite Democrat. I say that sarcastically, because Lord knows she ain't mine. But on a side note, for everything going on with her and all the foolishness that she would let spit out of her mouth, her little ghetto facade and cussing and acting all, ghetto fabulous and whatnot, getting on my last nerve and everyone and their mom's nerve, I still think that she would be more predictable and easier to deal with than that Tallarico guy. I think he's very dangerous because he professes a Christian, and he's one of those progressive Christians, and I find their theology vile, to say the least. And they have doctrines of demons. They have a theology that'll send you straight to hell. And I don't say that lightly. But let's move on to what happened with Jasmine Crockett and her security guard. And I'm telling you, y'all, if you hadn't heard this one, this needs to be heard to be believed. You gotta see it to believe it. Check this out.
The Dallas Police Department showed body camera video from last week's officer-involved shooting outside of Children's Medical Center. The man who was shot was a longtime security guard for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Police say he was wanted for posing as a federal agent and using fictitious businesses and fake credentials to hire legitimate police officers for off-duty jobs. Sean Rabb has a lot more, and it's pretty complicated on this story. Sean.
Complicated and amazing story of fraud and duping people at many levels. This man not only got close to Congresswoman Crockett, but also Dallas police officers, possibly officers from other agencies. He did it with a fake name and a bogus security company. Damon Robinson was known by many police and others as Mike King. He secured security contracts and oftentimes hired real police to work for him. But the ruse started to unravel for Robinson in late February. One of his vehicles, a black SUV, was stolen, and Irving police put out a warrant to locate on that vehicle. A Dallas police officer thought he remembered that vehicle with a federal government license plate, a plate that also was stolen. That's how this investigation got started. March 11th now, plainclothes officers are following Robinson. By now they know that's his real name, right? He has a long record of theft, tampering with government documents, and has a parole violation.
And let me just remind you, y'all, while you're watching this video, this dude was Jasmine Crockett's security. She was part of his security team with a rap sheet and record like that. I'm gonna show you a video also of hers where she's basically trying to justify her carelessness, which is obvious. But if a guy like this can get away and can get involved, that deeply involved in our government, imagine with somebody who's really well trained, what they can do.
They don't get him stopped that day, losing sight of him at that time. But hours later, pull in behind the vehicle. He's a passenger in at a parking garage at Children's Health. Listen now to how that encounter unfolded.
Stand up. Put your hand up. Don't reach. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Police give commands for him to get out of the car and give up. They negotiate for an hour, offering to get family on the phone to try and get him to surrender. But as he gets out of the vehicle, he lowers his right hand, then raises it with a weapon, and 3 officers open fire. Police say he was not any type of federal law enforcement. Out of the vehicle, he lowers his right hand, then raises it. They negotiate.
Right when they had brought it up, brought the image closer.
Don't do it.
Police give command.
Yeah, right there. If you look, they got the red circle around where his hand is. And you can see he had something in his hand, firearm, obviously, or what appeared to be one from our perspective. What would motivate a dude like this who was, so to speak, on top of the world, making good money, he had a business going, to get to the point to where he's ready to have his life taken by, I mean, he didn't think he was going to win. He's surrounded by SWAT. They have long guns on him. He knew he wasn't going to win. My thoughts, obviously, I'm no psychologist or psychiatrist, but my thoughts, he knew the jig was up, obviously, and he knew he was going to lose everything. He was going to go back to prison. His reputation, his business was going to be destroyed. I think dude was willing to do whatever it takes not to go back to that life and to be made a public spectacle to that level. Pretty crazy when you think about it. The fact that you're willing to die in order to not look dumb. I mean, you're still going to look dumb, but you don't have to experience it, I guess. Don't have to go back to prison.
For him to get out of the car and give up. They negotiate for an hour, offering to get family on the phone to try and get him to surrender. But as he gets out of the vehicle, he lowers.
You see a bunch of smoke coming out of there. They probably threw some tear gas or something like that.
His right hand, then raises it with a weapon, and 3 officers open fire. Police say he was not any type of federal law enforcement.
Oh, one more thing. You hear the details going on. They said he was they were negotiating with him for an hour, trying to offer to have family come out. This is what goes on every day. And I am not exaggerating when I say every day across this country. These are the kinds of contacts that police officers make on a regular basis, but they are never heard. You never see them on your main news unless it's a big major incident. But you have countless barricades, domestic violence calls gone bad, bank robberies, store robberies, holdups that happen all over this country over and over again, countless times per day. And they never make the news. And officers are going the extra mile to make sure to do everything in their power to make sure that these people come out without having to take their lives. Most major SWAT teams across the country or police agencies have some form of hostage negotiator, crisis negotiator team to talk people down in situations like this. But again, you don't hear about it, which is how the negative framing constantly takes place. When you highlight all the bad and you almost never talk about the good, this is what people see. And this is what they start to believe. It's called the negativity bias. That's a prime example of a negativity bias. People have a tendency to hold the negative. It's like doing social media. I post a video on social media and I get 50 positive comments, but it's like the 1 or 2 negative ones. They're the ones that have a tendency to linger in your head a little bit longer. Weird, I know, but it's human nature.
So the agencies that he reported to work for do not exist. So basically special dignitary police. And so that agency does not exist within the federal government. So that's who he portrayed to be. That's how his IDs that he had put together showed to be, but those agencies do not exist.
And what we now know, Robinson arrested multiple times for theft, probation violation, tampering with government records between 2011 and 2017. He had an active warrant for theft of checks at a hotel where he worked security in the past.
You know what I think? I think Jasmine Crockett just took the word of mouth by somebody she knew and trusted. That's what I think. If they investigate this, I bet you she just believes somebody who told her, hey, hire my cousin over here. He's got a background in this, and that. And she just trusted him. Dummy.
Again, he provided additional security for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett for some time. Her office sending a statement late this afternoon reading, our team followed all protocols outlined by the House to contract additional security. We were approved to use this vendor who also provided security services for additional entities in the local community and worked closely with law enforcement agencies, including Capitol Police. Wow.
You know, it's really weird, or another part of it that's equally as strange is the fact that this dude had worked with local law enforcement, had a security team. We don't really have that on Metro. If you're a cop here, unless things have changed in recent years, you can't do part-time work doing security. I think there's a conflict of interest, and I think that's a smart thing. Now, when you retire or whatever, that's a different ballgame. But the idea that there were on duty, actively working law enforcement who were working for this guy, it's crazy to me.
As Mike King, this man reportedly used a system that many companies use to recruit police officers to work part-time jobs. That system, that company, is Roll Call. DPD partnered with Roll Call in 2024 to try and improve the department's off-duty job program. Police would not discuss that in the news conference, but that company did meet with some police association leadership today and sent us a statement, in part reading, at no point was this individual able to access personal data of any person. But remember, it was an officer who had worked a job for him some 6 months ago or so who remembered that black SUV with federal license plates that started this investigation, that at least the shooting part, the end of it happened in that parking garage. But this is an investigation still far from over.
All right, Sean, I have two questions. First one's quick. I saw gas or smoke or something in the guy's car. Was that police? Did they try to flush him out with some tear gas? Is that what that was?
Yeah, so they used some sort of chemical agent to try to get him out. They used some sort of flashbang to try and get him out of the vehicle and convince him not to try, to resist, but to give up.
All right, second, the Crockett people had to run a background check on this guy, right?
Again, the Capitol Police or the House Security approved this vendor for use as additional security.
That's a failed background check, isn't it? It's got to be.
So there are a lot of questions about how someone could finagle their way at the highest levels. We would think the highest levels of security, Capitol Police, folks protecting our congresspersons, and yet this man was approved to work as additional security.
That's wild, y'all. Straight up. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. That's crazy that he was able to get that far. And what if he had ill will? What if he had bad intentions? Jasmine could be hurt somewhere. And I'm not a fan of hers, but I don't want to see nothing bad happen to her. I don't dislike her to that extent. But pretty crazy. But here's the other video where she's talking. She's being questioned while she's walking with rocking the fur coat. I guess it's cold in DC. I don't know, but I'm telling you, this woman, ghetto fabulous. That's the only way to explain her. Ghetto fabulous. On my last nerve, y'all. All right, here we go. Let's start this video here. She's walking. This reporter starts to ask her some questions.
History before you hired him, Congresswoman? Were you aware at all of his criminal past?
I'm going to refer you to my page because I made a statement and I said that there would be no additional statements. So it is fully containing everything that you need.
Why
If
do you
need
think?
someone to read it for you?
No, I read
can
it, but I'm
find
wondering
someone
why.
to do that
Why
as
do you
well.
think he was impersonating a federal
Thank you.
agent? How did it get past your office? Criminal history.
Why is she catching the attitude? I mean, that's a legitimate question he asked her. If he's known, it seemed like it's Fox News. Maybe she saw Fox News and knew that they weren't going to show her any mercy. But why are you catching the attitude when you had a dude, an ex-felon, working as a part of your security team? Yeah, she did release a statement, but they're asking for more. That's it. Silly to me. But it's Jasmine Crockett. So what do you really expect? I don't expect much else. That's just a wild story. All right, but let's move on to the next topic here. We're going to talk about the illegal alien in Chicago who took the life of a young woman. Dude released multiple times. I don't want to steal the story away from the video. I'll let the video do the talking here. Truly sad, y'all. Here we go.
Illegal alien from Venezuela who has now been charged with murdering up that sanctuary city policies. They say protected an illegal alien from Venezuela who has now been charged with murdering a college student. Early Thursday morning, police say 25-year-old Jose Medina opened fire on a group of college students 1 mile from the campus of Loyola University who had gone out, police say, to see the northern lights from a Chicago pier. 18-year-old Sheridan Gorman was shot and killed. Medina now facing a number of serious charges, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, and aggravated unlawful possession of a weapon.
Let me know what you think, y'all. Because when I see situations like this, I automatically think who is ultimately responsible. And when the border opened wide, unless we find out some details that he came in at a different point, but we're going to hear something about him being released in 2021 or something like that. But when we hear stuff like this go on, I'm so sick and tired of these politicians who never have to face the consequences. I'm borrowing from a Thomas Sowell quote, but they never truly have to face the consequences for their bad policies. Somehow they always manage to be exempt. They're untouched. Somebody needs to go to prison behind this. Not just the shooter. Obviously, the shooter needs to go to prison behind this. But there needs to be these politicians who allow for things like this to happen. They need to face the consequences for their poor decision making at the highest level. If someone dies because of something that they do, especially in a situation like this that could have completely been avoided, they need to go to prison for complicity, like to murder. In my mind. Let me know what you think.
Law enforcement say he should have never even been in this country, much less roaming the streets of Chicago armed with a weapon and ready to kill. Joining us now to discuss is veteran FBI special agent in charge and former head of the Chicago PD, Jody Weiss. Jody, good morning to you. Just incredibly heartbreaking for this family who sent their daughter to college, only now to be planning her funeral. And you say this was completely preventable because he should have been deported a long time ago. How did
that breaks my heart. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Like, honestly, you send your kid off to school and then next you know you're planning their funeral because of some dude who should have never been sent into this country. Takes her life. Like, that's disgusting. And stick around because wait till you see or hear the response from Jamie Pritzker.
Jose Medina entered this country? What do we know about him?
Yeah, good to see you, Jan. Jose Medina, he comes into the country, he's arrested by U.S. Border Patrol in May of 2023. A month later, he's arrested for shoplifting. So there were two opportunities, to deport this man back to Venezuela. But the result of that failure is that we have Sheridan Gorman, who was viciously murdered, just recently, a few days ago.
And by the way, you and I both have lived in Chicago, and this is an area that is fully lit. Residents often go to the lakefront at all times of the day and the night. Folks will jog there, take pictures off a lot of these piers because you got the whole skyline there behind you. Plus, she was with a group of friends when this suspect came up from behind them. you have to wonder right now with some of the comments that are being made from some city leaders in regards to, they shouldn't have been there. This was wrong time, wrong place. What did you think about this?
Let me share with you just what they're talking about. Hold on 1 second. I want to pull that video up. There was a alderwoman who made probably the most ridiculous comment I think I've ever heard on this topic right here. And it's all over the internet right now.
All the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around.
Why am I getting no sound here? 1 second, make sure it's not muted. I had the tab muted. All right, here we go.
All the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around all the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around. So the kids were out doing normal things people do in the neighborhood. And it sounds like this might have been a wrong place, wrong time, running into a person who had a gun. They might have startled this person at the end of the pier unintentionally. But
wrong place, wrong time is what she's basically saying. And it's weird. Now look at this is what Libs of TikTok says. Maria Haddon, that's who was just speaking, alderwoman, Chicago alderwoman, and a self-described queer progressive champion, says that Sheridan's life was taken because she might have startled the migrant who killed her. Can't make this stuff up, y'all. These people are insane. I'm telling you, if I didn't do Code Red conversations, I'm being straight up with y'all. I would have to take time away from watching the news because this stuff here will just enrage you at times. How idiotic some people are. People will believe anything when it comes to supporting their side of the aisle. Notice how she wasn't willing to take any responsibility or show any responsibility from or over the fact that this illegal alien took this young girl's life. Like of course, she would never even use that language. They love the undocumented and make people feel good. But I call it what it is. If you're here illegally, breaking the law to enter our country, you are an illegal alien. But imagine if this was a white person. It would be, or a cop. It would be, the cops are so bad. They're so violent. What they do to women or minorities or whomever, they would have found some reason to blame the other entity, especially if it's somebody that's in their target, white, police, conservative.
Yeah, it's so sickening to have to even talk about this, Jan. Overall crime in Chicago, it is actually down, but this is not regular crime. This is crime caused because of one reason, Chicago being a sanctuary city. If we want to talk about leadership, and I think the phrase that probably encapsulates the incompetency of this leadership is that one alderman, Maria Haddon, who had the audacity to say, oh, this was simply an incident of wrong place, wrong time. And then.
Yeah, he's just repeating what I just posted. Let me share this real quick. I'm going to get to the other comments, but I really want to share this one because this was really fitting as to this video. The newspaper or news outlet apologized for calling the guy an illegal alien. Just as dumb as the alder person. I agree 100%. And that happens all the time. Like, they're so worried because they're words that you should and shouldn't say. So stupid. We have gotten so ridiculous as a society. Everybody and their mama is so easily offended by every little thing someone says, the way they look at them. Things that wouldn't have bothered people 20 years ago now are the reasons people are taking their own lives. Or young people are unaliving themselves. I mean, it's so stupid. So much stupidity. I'm telling you, y'all. Pray for this world, pray for this country, pray for this nation, pray for these lost people, these confused people. That is the only thing. I try to daily add to my prayer list people who are just lost out there and just so deeply indoctrinated into this ideology. The only thing that keeps me from losing my mind is that I try to put myself in their place, in the sense that there was a time when I was lost too.
Even suggested that Sheridan may have startled Medina and he had a gun, so he shot her. That is literally outrageous. So if we want to talk about wrong place, wrong time, as long as Chicago is a sanctuary city, I would say Chicago is the wrong place, and the wrong time is every minute of the day.
Well, the family put out a statement that said, in part, we are greatly disappointed by the policies and failures that allowed this individual to remain in a position to commit this crime. When systems fail, whether through release decisions, lack of coordination, or unwillingness to act, the consequences are not abstract. They are real, and in our case, they are permanent.
Man, just hearing them say that is heartbreaking. Like, literally. That makes me just so sad, because there's no going back. These bad policies that these clowns advocate for are destroying lives in many instances. There was a cop here in Vegas a couple of years ago, I think it was, who, I think an illegal alien hit a pole, a light pole, and it fell, and he ended up being, I think he got killed. And who let that guy in? Like, honestly, I don't know. I don't remember all the details, but there's so many instances. I've done multiple videos on my channel where I discuss these issues, and you see time and time again, you see no repercussions for these policymakers, none whatsoever. So let me take this video down here and share with y'all this next video on the same topic, but just hear what Pritzker had to say about this incident and who he blames. You're not going to be too surprised, I'm sure, but.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker finally speaking out days after an illegal immigrant was arrested in the shooting death of an 18-year-old college student. The governor saying, quote, Sheridan Gorman's murder is a tragedy, and the person responsible must be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. My deepest condolences to the family, friends, and Loyola University community grieving this devastating loss. May her memory be a blessing. The illegal Venezuelan migrant is facing 6 felony counts, including first-degree murder. The hearing for Jose Medina has been postponed until Friday. This tragedy.
I heard he was supposed to appear in court, but he has TB or something like that.
It hits close to home for our next guest, who is the assemblyman representing Sheridan's hometown of Yorktown Heights. Republican New York Assemblyman Matt Slater joins us now, and we thank you so much for doing just that as we mourn the loss of this young life taken far too soon and so senselessly. How is your community reacting to this tragic murder, and how is she being remembered?
Well, thank you, Carly, and good morning. Yeah, this is an absolute senseless tragedy, and our community is completely devastated. We are doing everything we can to stand with the Gorman family. We, of course, extend our heartfelt condolences and prayers to her.
This may not have been the clip I was looking for. There was one clip where Jamie Pritzker basically said that Trump was to blame for these illegals not being taken out of our country because he was supposed to go after the worst of the worst. What do you say to that kind of foolishness? Like, honestly, like, how do you even respond? Now, obviously, there's a way to respond. The mere fact that the border was left wide open for years is the root cause of all of this. If these idiots in these sanctuary cities, wide open border and sanctuary cities, those are the primary problems. And if these fools did their very base level job as politicians, and that is to protect the citizens of the United States, this wouldn't have happened. But what do once it happens? They point the finger and they blame someone else. Lord, I pray it would be so nice to see a politician on any side take responsibility when they screw up instead of trying to weasel your way out. And I know it's par for the course. I know it's part of the job of politics, but it doesn't have to be. Somebody can come along and set a new standard and take responsibility for when they screw up. I know they want to be reelected, but how refreshing would it be for somebody to say, you know what, that idea was a bad idea. I learned from it, and I promise I'll do better. But I don't understand this whole idea of people just lying their way through in order to try to justify bad policies and bad decisions. Let's go on to the next topic, y'all. I see Lon posted. What's up, brother Lon? I saw you posted earlier, man. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I just wanted to make sure the chat was linked to what the current discussion was. Useful idiots. They actually believe what they spew. They probably do. I'm sure there's some that believe it, but I really wonder if a lot of these people actually believe what they say. I think they're just doing it as a CYB, I should say. They just want to cover their own butts. That's my honest opinion. They just want to protect themselves. They don't care about anybody else. They want to protect their job. They don't want to get in any legal trouble. So they say whatever is necessary. On to a different topic. Nick Shirley, independent journalist, young man, I think he's 21, 22 years old, something like that. But he's been doing an amazing job of exposing the nonsense out there when it comes to fraud around the country. He went to Minnesota a few months ago and exposed a ton of fraud when it comes down to childcare because they're getting all these taxpayer dollars, and you have a ton of companies. I can't remember how much it was. It was in the hundreds of millions. It was a lot of money. And at the same time, he pissed a whole lot of people off. So now he's in California, and this is just a snippet. If you haven't watched his latest video, go to YouTube, type in Nick Shirley, California, home healthcare or hospice healthcare fraud. And my man, he's killing it. He's killing it out there. And this is just a short snippet of what went down in his most recent video. And then we'll go to a response to his investigation by the one and only Gavin Newsom. You got to stick around to hear this nonsense.
Care right here. This right here is Hayden Sarah Family Childcare. This is a daycare right here. Apparently, they have 14 children enrolled. Tell us a little bit more about this daycare right here. We're in the middle of the hills here in San Diego.
So, according to state records, when inspectors arrived here, there were 14 kids enrolled, but 0 present. And then this place was also cited for having missing children's records and also not having a facility roster.
It's kind of weird that there's this daycare in the middle of a neighborhood.
Now, initially, I would be skeptical of a regular home having a full-blown daycare, but we're talking about California. Lord only knows what kind of ridiculous rules they have.
Hello? I was naked, okay?
No, you weren't.
I can sue you. I was like, I wasn't dressed up. I'm Muslim.
Either way, can we enroll a child into the daycare?
You don't know what's going on?
Well, it says there's 14 children enrolled here on the state of California. It says there's 14 children enrolled here.
You don't care.
I do care. Then where are the children?
You don't care.
Where are the children at?
It's not enough, Minnesota. You come here.
Where are the children at? Where are the children at, ma'am? Where are the children at, ma'am? 14 children. Would you like to make a statement as to where the children are?
You don't care where is my children are.
Ma'am, we would not be here if we weren't asking you.
You don't care. You don't care.
What do you mean we don't care? This is why we're here.
And don't record me. You don't care.
This is why we're here to ask about these daycares.
Ask me who you are. Who you are.
My name's Nick Shirley. You already know that.
Shirley. I know, but you a trouble man.
She already knew that because she said that you come from Minnesota and now you're here. So she knew exactly who you was.
How are we making trouble? You're causing trouble.
Let me call 911.
We just want to know where the children are.
No, I'm calling 911.
For what?
To you.
For what?
You come to my house.
We haven't done anything.
I don't know.
The problem with these daycares is that they receive money through a program called CalWorks, but as you see, there are no children actually there. These fraudsters are simply enrolling children on paper to receive government subsidies. Even after the state visits these daycares and confirms there are no children actually there, the government and the state continue to give these daycares money. Now let's go to another daycare. Once again, we have another daycare, but this daycare is right here inside of this home, and let's see if there's any children here. They do say they have 7 enrolled. The state has said that there is 0 when they arrive. Is this Habubu Family Child Care?
Habubu?
Yeah, we were wondering if we could enroll a child into the daycare here.
We know you. You need to get up from here because there is trespassing. You see the sign we have trespassing?
And can I speak with somebody on the sidewalk? Would you just like to speak with somebody? Yes, sir.
Hide the sign, please.
Yes, we're right here. Can we talk to you really quick, sir? Can I come talk to you, please? All right, so right now, the current situation is we have some people yelling through the Ring doorbell cam. A man came out, started yelling, and then we also have this car recording us as well. But we just want to ask for some clarification.
My man Nick needs to be careful out there because there are a lot of people. If you watch the full video, he comes in contact with a shopping center that has a whole bunch of Armenian, and he's even referenced that it's alleged to have some ties to the Armenian mafia or mob. And my man needs to be really, really careful. He's already getting threats and death threats from the work he's done around the country, even before he went to Minnesota. So with these latest videos getting more and more publicity, he really needs to be careful while he's out there. And I thank God for what he's doing. He's a fearless young man, and I hope he keeps it up. But I definitely hope he does his best to be careful.
For the American people.
4 different visits. The state inspectors have shown up. There's kids enrolled anywhere from 7 kids and up. And every single time the state has showed up, 0.
0 children.
That's the state of California.
We're just asking for some clarification. They won't even answer.
So every time the state shows up, there are no kids, but yet we know how. They're still getting paid. They're still getting money. Man, I'm telling you, these people in California are in on it. I think on various levels when it comes to the government. And they've been able to get away with it for years, and finally somebody's actually taking a look at them. I think Trump is doing that.
Any of our questions? So essentially a house just like this is receiving money from government subsidies without actually running a daycare. Meanwhile, they get money from the government as they run their fake daycares.
Wild, y'all. As I've been saying repeatedly in this video, wild but not surprising. Let me get this down here completely. Let me share this with you. This was the response from everyone's favorite governor, Gavin Newsom, to this, what Nick Shirley is doing. This is what he did. This is what he posted. Basically saying like, hey, this is Nick Shirley. And he's got some weird dude looking like with a bunch of cameras on him, looking all kinds of strange, saying he wants to see people's kids. God forbid you actually investigate the crime that's going on. And I know they're afraid because they don't want to be found complicit in all the nonsense, but this is so juvenile and ridiculous. It's just silly. I'm not surprised by any of these people. Let's move on to something a bit more. We've been talking about some dark topics today. Let's move on to something a little more entertaining. It's still sad, no doubt about it, but something probably make you facepalm more than anything else. Let me share this one here. Keep him in prayer. Talking about Nick Shirley, absolutely. For many reasons. Many reasons keep Nick Shirley in prayer because I don't think he's born again. So keep him in prayer for that. But definitely regarding this video, just the fact that he's out there exposing corruption all over the country. And when you're talking about millions, hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars, people will do much worse for far less. So, all right, let's pull up this video here. Yeah, here we go. Crazy talk. I was talking about how Jillian Michaels has been discussing different topics, but this one here goes back to her roots as a fitness trainer, because nowadays she's talking politics and bringing people on her show. But this right here was the Jubilee debate channel. And she's being challenged by a whole group of people talking about obesity. And you just have to hear this foolishness, y'all.
So the claim that you're saying is that it is inherently unhealthy to live in a fat body.
It's inherently unhealthy to have excess body fat, yes.
Okay, where are you getting that information from?
Oh, okay. There are dozens of MRT trials that show having excess body fat. Dozens is causal, not correlated.
Oh, no, that's not true. There is no disease that just fat-bodied people get.
Before we move on, just look at the fact check done by Jubilee here on my left as on the video, your right. According to the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, excess body fat, particularly at levels classified as obesity, is associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, certain cancers, high blood pressure, and premature death. However, body fat is not the only determinant of health. Physical activity, diet quality, genetics, and metabolic markers also play a role. And I don't think anybody's going to argue or is trying to argue that there aren't a multitude of factors that impact someone's overall health. But what was known as common sense universally just a few years ago has now become controversial and now become a reason for people to be offended. Insanity.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But obesity
Back it up.
That just fat
is causal, not correlated.
Oh, no, that's not true. There is no disease that just fat-bodied people get.
I didn't say that.
Did you notice the attempted straw manning of her argument? There are no diseases that just fat-bodied people have. That isn't even close, and I'm glad Jillian was on it because she caught the lie immediately. Like, don't switch up my argument. Don't create a straw man that is easier for you to attack. People do that all the time in debate. Be mindful of that when you're having these conversations.
Didn't say that. But obesity lends itself to all-cause mortality across the board. Have you heard of something called adiposopathy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know it means literally sick fat. And you understand how it works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me how
I doubt she knows.
It works.
So it's an additional layer of fat in the stomach area.
No, that's not what it is. It works as follows. When we eat too much food that has energy that we're not utilizing, the body needs to put that energy somewhere, right? So it puts it in fat cells. So it puts it in initially subcutaneous fat cells, a little bit of visceral fat, which is fat around the organs. And at first you have hyperplasia, which means we're recruiting new little fat cells.
Let's read the fact check. Adiposopathy or sick fat refers to dysfunctional fat tissue that contributes to metabolic disease. It is not simply excessive body fat, but fat that has become biologically altered in ways that promote inflammation, insulin resistance, abnormal cholesterol levels, and increased cardiovascular risk, according to the American Association of Clinical Endocrinology.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing up to a point. Now, the issue is that once you can no longer recruit more fat cells, right, you get hypertrophy. So the fat cells start to expand. And this is exceptionally dangerous because what ends up happening is the blood vessels get outpaced. So the fat cells can't get oxygen. and they start screaming, literally. And when they do, they release cytokines, inflammatory proteins, right?
I want to pause.
Of course you do want to pause, because it's irrefutable. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
Man, I haven't watched the entire debate, but I've watched enough of it, and I've heard enough of these conversations to know that I don't want to just be redundant over and over again. The insanity levels from these people who want to defend obesity, even though they know it doesn't look good. But even worse than the fact that it doesn't look good, that's just a minor side effect. But the fact that it is overwhelmingly unhealthy, they just want to reject that. And there's, as Jillian said in the beginning of the video, there are countless studies and countless levels of research that have been done to prove and show that obesity is a dangerous state to be in. But you go to the university, and this is the foolishness that you bring back. You don't learn this anywhere. I mean, yeah, you'll get it on TikTok and weird places like that. But this type of mess is blowing my mind. How rampant it is. Got a post here. Now that conservatives have had a felon president and a Republican majority in every branch of the government for over a year, have all their dreams come true, or are they just as unhappy as always? I wouldn't say that all. I don't expect any president to do everything that they say. But overall, I would say that Donald Trump has done a solid job. He's sealed up the border, which I'm very happy with, absolutely very happy with. He stopped all this push to transition our kids. He's defunded Planned Parenthood. He's getting rid of, between self-deportations and what ICE has done in Homeland Security, there have been about 3 million people who have self-deported. Even though, and he's the only president that released any level of the Epstein files. Yeah, there was a lot of pushback and weird stuff going on, but he released the Epstein files. I'm not thrilled with everything that this man does. I have big questions about what's going on over in Iran. But at the same time, I understand that Iran has been a problem for decades. And the Iranian people, and getting rid of dictators, I don't even know if that's what he's going to end up doing, is a good thing. But as a whole, where he's going, trying to set us up financially, and yeah, we're going through some ugly times right now with the market all over the place, gas prices ridiculously high. But I believe that he actually has a plan, and I trust the man. And because I think he did, I voted for the man 3 times, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did, because it beats the fake, non-existent administration we had for the previous 4 years, where he was a live action version of Weekend at Bernie's with Joe Biden. And we had the auto pen doing all the job. All this comes out, all the problems that this man had, and everybody wanted to act as if he's totally healthy. But now they want to point out every little thing that happens with Donald Trump to try to make it out to be that he's got all types of issues. In the meantime, they turned a complete blind eye to Joe Biden's multiple brain farts, walking around in an utter state of confusion, and the reports that there was basically a shadow government under his watch. Man, y'all stop. Stop. Things don't change overnight. Absolutely, brother. It takes a while. And the man has barely been there over a year. And we're talking issues that have went on for decades, especially when we're looking at the issues when it comes down to what's the term, when it talks about us being a little more self-reliant. All the things that we sent off to China. Look at what happened with COVID. When COVID came in, we had to get ventilators and all this personal protection equipment, PPE, we had to send off to China, and we put ourselves in dire straits by all types of bad decisions that we made back in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Silliness. Trump at the crime rate. We are seeing the largest dip in crime nationwide basically since they started recording it under his watch. So y'all can sit up there and hate on the man all you want, Audrey. I'm assuming that's your stance. And Lon, you hit it right on the head. TDS, it is Trump derangement syndrome. Some people aren't even willing to give that man the benefit of the doubt. And when it comes down to these so-called felonies and whatnot, they took cases that were only looked upon as being misdemeanor cases, and they turned around and twisted them to make them into felonies for this man. And where are those cases at now? They're pretty much all dead, last I checked. Yeah, we got COVID from China, no doubt about it. Time and time again, there nothing but that last administration, crime rate was up. They fudged the numbers nationally in order to make it look like they care, because they are soft on crime. Wide open border. God knows who came into our country, but y'all are okay with that. Man, miss me with all that nonsense. Anyway, y'all, appreciate y'all for joining me today. The show went a little longer than I hoped. I spent a little more time on that first topic, but I thought it was something worth discussing. But let me know what you want to hear if there are any topics. I think I'm going to start talking about a little bit more in the shows to come. I'm going to start talking about the issues of judges who are letting people out, repeat offenders. I want to do a segment on that on basically every episode so that we are more knowledgeable about what's going on in our country. There are people out there that want to run a narrative of, certain people are protected, certain people get mistreated in the criminal justice system. I think that's absolute garbage, personally. But again, I appreciate y'all for joining me. As always, stay safe, God bless, and make sure you join the conversation. Take care.